Okay, so when you think about Shakespeare's big tragedies, you usually get the standard stuff, right? The tragic flaw, the usual summaries.
Right, the kind of thing you learn in school.
Exactly. But today, forget that. We're going way deeper, taking a completely fresh look at Hamlet, Othello, and Macbeth.
Yeah, we really are. The core idea for this deep dive is to look at these incredibly famous characters through a pretty unique lens, quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics. Okay, go on.
Well, what if we thought about them not just as people on a stage, but as these sort of dynamic mental architectures, like systems grappling with quantum ideas, observation, interference, even chaos or entropy?
Well, okay, that's definitely a different way to think about them. Mental architectures crashing.
Kind of, yeah. The analysis suggests they might represent like three distinct types of what you could call collapsing consciousness.
Collapsing consciousness. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
intrigued. And for you listening, our mission here is basically to get you completely up to speed on this, well, fascinating new way of seeing these plays.
Yeah, hopefully uncovering some really surprising insights, seeing how these characters might show us universal sort of failure modes of the mind itself.
All right, let's set the stage then. This idea, Shakespeare's tragic code, you're calling it.
That's the idea. The big theory is that these specific tragedies, Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, can genuinely be illuminated if we look at them using concepts from quantum mechanics.
So we're saying their inner worlds, their struggles, they behave a bit like quantum systems.
In a metaphorical sense, yes. Dealing with things like how does being observed change things? How does bad information scramble good feelings? How does ambition lead to total breakdown?
So it's more than just standard literary critique.
Oh, yeah. It's digging into how these plays might tap into something fundamental about, well, perception, emotion, maybe even free will, but seen through this unexpected scientific frame.
Okay, let's start with Hamlet then. You're calling him the quantum observer.
Right. The core idea with Hamlet is that he exists in this state of unresolved potential, what quantum physics calls superposition.
Superposition. Like Schrodinger's cat, sort of. Both alive and dead.
Exactly like that. He's neither fully the Avenger nor the pacifist. He's both. And neither until something forces him or he forces himself to kind of collapse into one definite state, one course of action.
So that famous to be or not to be soliloquy. It's not just him umming and ahhing.
Well, in this view, it's more fundamental. It's like a literal wave of possibilities or a wave function of existence. Until he acts, definitively, he remains pure potential. He's this whole spectrum of what he could be or do.
Which connects to the observer effect then. The idea that just looking at something changes it.
Precisely. Every time Hamlet thinks, reflects, turns things over in his mind, you could say he's measuring himself. He collapses one potential state. Maybe for a moment, he's resolved to act.
But then he seems to snap back.
Exactly. Because external forces keep interfering, right? The ghost's demands, Claudius watching him, Ophelia's situation, Gertrude's pleas. It's like constant external measurements keep disrupting his state, preventing him from sailing into one stable course. He keeps reverting to that state of potential.
That explains so much of his back and forth. And that line, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That suddenly sounds very quantum.
Doesn't it? It's almost a direct echo of the principle that the observer, in some sense, helps create the reality being observed. His internal state, his thinking, defines his world.
So his tragedy, his downfall, it comes when he stops being that observer.
You could argue that, yes, when he's finally pushed or pushes himself into becoming purely an actor, when he commits to that final direct action, that's when his own complex state definitively collapses.
And that collapse leads straight to his death.
Tragically, yes. So the metaphor, the never-before-seen metaphor here, is Hamlet as this quantum field of possibilities. He's entangled with death, you could say, and the very act of observation his own, and others constantly disrupts and ultimately destroys that fluid, poetic state of hesitation.
It's not just indecision then, it's the weight of all that potential being forced into one single fatal outcome.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so from Hamlet observing and collapsing, we move to Othello. And you're framing this as the interference pattern destroyed.
That's right. With Othello, the tragedy looks like the destruction of what we could call constructive interference in his emotional world. And it's Iago who manipulates it into destructive interference.
Interference.
Yes.
Like radio waves interfering. Can you break that down a bit for us in terms of emotion?
Sure. Think of two sound waves, maybe. If they're perfectly in sync, they add up, make the sound stronger, clearer. That's constructive interference. Othello's love and trust for Desdemona initially are like that harmonious emotional waves, resonating, creating this strong, clear bond. Okay, a clear signal of love.
Exactly. But then, if waves are out of sync or pushing against each other,
Mm.
they can cancel out. Silence or just noise.
Yeah.
That's destructive interference.
And Iago is the one pushing them out of sync.
He's the master of it. He's like the ultimate signal jammer. He introduces what we can call phase-shifting interference. The lies, the planted handkerchief, the jealousy, the insinuation. It's all false data designed to systematically cancel out that coherence, that clear signal of love and trust.
He's actively scrambling Othello's emotional reality.
Absolutely. So Othello becomes, in this metaphor, like a diffraction experiment corrupted by bad data. Where light waves are meant to create a clear pattern, but something messes it up.
Right.
Othello starts seeing Desdemona, his whole world, through this horribly distorted, scrambled lens Iago creates. The tragedy isn't just jealousy, though that's part of it. It's the total scrambling of the emotional signal.
The fundamental data of his love is just corrupted. He can't perceive accurately anymore. Precisely. And think about Iago's line, I will not charm my tongue, I am bound to speak. It's almost like he's compelled to be this signal jammer, constantly injecting noise.
Which just leads to his tragic end. You called it emotional decoherence. That sounds very specific.
It is. In quantum physics, decoherence is basically when a delicate quantum state, like superposition, loses its special quantum properties because it interacts too much with its environment. It becomes messy, classical, loses its clarity.
Like a clear radio signal dissolving into static.
That's a perfect analogy. Othello's love, that clear emotional waveform, is just completely destroyed by Iago's interference, by that static. By the time the truth comes out, after Desdemona is dead, it's far too late.
The signal is gone. Irretrievably lost.
He's emotionally disintegrated. The coherence is gone.
Wow. Okay. Hamlet, Othello, and now Macbeth, the entropy machine.
Yes. Macbeth is framed here not just as an ambitious man, but as an engine driving towards disorder, an entropic engine.
Entropy. Okay, refresh us quickly. What's the core idea of entropy in physics?
So entropy is basically a measure of disorder or randomness in a system. The famous second law of thermodynamics says that in an isolated system, total entropy, total disorder, tends to increase over time. Things naturally go from order to chaos.
Like a clean room getting messy on its own.
Exactly. Or a broken glass doesn't just reassemble itself. There's a natural direction towards more randomness, more pieces, more chaos. Macbeth, spurred by the witch's prophecy, acts like a force that dramatically accelerates this natural tendency towards disorder, but in the moral and social universe of the play.
So the witches, they're not just evil, but maybe like probabilistic determiners. They introduce the possibility, the spark of potential chaos.
That's one way to read it through this lens, yeah. They give him a glimpse of a possible future, a potential state of higher order for him personally being king.
But in trying to force that state into reality,
he unleashes total chaos. He actively destroys the existing equilibrium, the existing order. Does his attempt to control destiny actually cause the massive increase in disorder? It seems like it.
And each murder, Duncan, Banquo, Macduff's family, isn't just a sin, it's adding.
It's adding thermodynamic disorder to the system. It shatters social bonds, loyalty, trust, basic humanity. Each act increases the overall chaos, the moral entropy.
Which makes that line, things bad begun make strong themselves by ill, sound like.
Like a direct statement of the second law applied to morality. Once you start down that path of increasing disorder, it feeds on itself. The chaos just grows and grows. It's an entropic cascade.
And Lady Macbeth, her famous, a little water clears us of this deed.
In this framework, she's trying to manage the system, trying to contain the heat generated by their actions, maybe reset the disorder, but she fundamentally misunderstands the scale of it.
The system's already fundamentally broken, overheated.
Exactly. It's runaway entropy. And it consumes her too, doesn't it? She burns out from the inside, driven mad by the uncontrollable disorder they've unleashed.
So Macbeth's death at the end.
Yeah.
It's not just justice being served.
It's also like entropy's end. The system has basically reached maximum disorder under his influence. He's burned through all available order. There's nothing left but collapse. Silence has to reclaim the stage because the entropic process he drove has run its course.
The universe rebalancing, maybe, after his catastrophic disruption.
A new, albeit scarred, equilibrium.
Okay, let's pull this all together, this quantum view of the tragedy.
Right. So Hamlet. We see possibility, potential, essentially paralyzed by the act of observation, internal and external.
Othello. Powerful emotion, love, trust, fundamentally corrupted and destroyed by false interference, by bad data.
And Macbeth. Ambition acting like an engine driving unstoppable entropy, increasing disorder until the whole system collapses.
It paints Shakespeare in a really different light. Not just a playwright, but almost a quantum engineer of the soul.
That's a provocative way to put it, yeah. Like he was intuitively coding these minds, exploring their distinct failure modes under pressures that mirror these, well, fundamental cosmic principles.
So these aren't just plays about flawed individuals. They're like deep dives into mental architectures crashing under different cosmic laws.
Exactly. It elevates them beyond simple character studies into something maybe more universal about how consciousness, emotion, and order can break down.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a really fascinating thought to chew on, doesn't it?
I think so. If Shakespeare seemed to intuitively grasp or express these kinds of cosmic laws, these deep patterns of breakdown, centuries before quantum physics even existed.
Yeah. What other fundamental truths about reality, about ourselves, might great art and literature be revealing? Truths that maybe science is only just now starting to catch up to or provide a new language for.
It makes you wonder what else is hiding in plain sight within these stories we thought we knew so well.